As someone that peruses through the cesspool known as X, formerly known as Twitter, I don't recommend that social media app for people that don't have a huge amount of patience or tolerance to opposing positions and opinions. My personal number one rule is that I never respond or engage to tweets or any sort of threads. I'll post art books or some work in progresses here and there, but other than that, I don't do anything other than find artists to look at their work. But lately, there have been some huge waves in the anime/manga/art community. I know you guys have probably seen this controversy thing related to this piece of Dandadan fan art, right? Well, guess what? I'm not going to be talking about that. Instead, I'm going to be talking about this other thing. Koreax has just announced that he is releasing a manga called Monsters We Make. Now, by the time I record this video, it's already been a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of days since he announced the release of that. But the issue is that a lot of people have been saying that this isn't a manga because it isn't made by a Japanese person and it wasn't made in Japan. Before people say that I'm making up random claims to other people have said, well, here you go. And just a quick disclaimer, I personally do not have the answers or a particular strong opinion on this. I guess you could say that I'm using this video to open the discussion, so to speak. I want there to be discussions, theories, civil discourse in the comment section if at all possible. I don't want anyone calling each other names. If you guys can help it, please, let's be civil about this. Anyway, I've seen these claims made to Koreax Kenshin, and I couldn't help but feel that the claim for it, in order for this to be called a manga, it needs to be Japanese and made in Japan to be sort of not enough. But hey, maybe it is. Personally, I think it's okay for this to be called a manga, but I'm willing to admit that I will change my position for this if I am proven otherwise. But before that, I just want to point out that there were also some people that said that the video he used to promote Monsters We Make wasn't an anime, but quite simply a cartoon, because again, not Japanese, wasn't made in Japan, etc, etc. And again, it seems like it needs to be that in order for it to be called an anime. So here's what the rundown looks like. It seems like, and it could be wrong, manga turns into anime and comics turn into cartoons or televised animated series. At this point, I considered looking up definitions and origins to words and direct translations, but I realized that that's not what people of Twitter or Reddit or just people of the internet in general are talking about. I'm not sure, honestly. I just think a lot of people are honestly picking and choosing what things mean. Like, I'm pretty sure anime is just short for animation, but to be fair, as time went on, the word anime transformed into something meaning a lot more than just the short version of animation, if you know what I mean. Because if anime is short for this, then anime also means this, but that's not what people are thinking of when we say anime. But despite that, I still looked up some definitions and direct translations between English and Japanese. And don't worry, I know Google Translate isn't the best tool for direct translations, but let's try it anyway. Well, it seems translating the words cartoon or comic comes up as manga when translated to Japanese. Again, just to let it be known, I don't think that this is necessary information or necessary proof to people that comics are equivalent to manga. I'm just looking up definitions right now and translations. Again, bear with me guys, please. This is a very interesting conversation. At least it is to me. Very quickly, I wanted to look at the whole being Japanese and made in Japan thing and sort of test it. I wanted to look at other examples of people that may have already done their own manga. For the people that are in the art/manga art community, you may have already known of a YouTuber and a manga artist called White Manga. He has his own manga called Apple Black, which I do actually own the first volume, albeit it's an old edition for it. But that aside, looking at this, people will say that this isn't a manga, but rather a manga-inspired comic. Similar to how Avatar: The Last Airbender is considered to be an anime-inspired cartoon. The reason being, again, the blood of which whose hands have made this product must be of Japanese descent and must be made in the land of the rising sun. And from there, it could be called a manga, and from that, it could be made into an anime. Okay, then how about this then? Have you guys heard about Radiant? This was drawn and written by Tony Valente, and according to Wikipedia, it's called a manhwa, which I guess translates to French manga. And yeah, I guess that makes sense since Tony Valente is French himself. But the crazy thing is that Radiant got an anime adaptation. Yeah, anime, made by Japanese people that speak the Japanese language in the land known as Japan. And after looking at some clips, I think both me and you guys watching this video right now can both agree that this at least can be called an anime, right? But by that virtue, this should also be called a manga, right? Because only a manga can be turned into anime, right? Well, it's probably not that simple, I'll be honest. Bit of a side note, but I'll admit that while I was doing research for this video, this was the first time I've heard of the word manhwa. And I'm still side-eyeing that word because I could type manga, manhwa, and manhua and not have the spelling error underlining, but when I type manhwa, Well, regardless of whether you call it a manga, manhwa, or comic, I believe that it can at least have the capability of being made that which we call anime. I mean, look at things like Tower of God, God of High School, Noblest, hell, Solo Leveling, all are which are Korean, but they all got anime adaptations. But I do think webtoons or digital comics in general are a lot more chill when it comes to names. Whether it was created by a Korean, Japanese, Chinese, black, white, blue, or green person, people will call this a webtoon or webcomic. I don't hear people say web manga or web manhwa, but actually, there is the case of One Punch Man. No, not that One Punch Man, this one. I'm curious about what you guys have to say about this. Would this be called a webtoon or a webcomic? Or do you guys want to differentiate this and call it a web manga or a digital manga? Or are they all the same? I do think that if a French or black person makes a webcomic, webtoon, whatever, I don't think their race or where they drew it matters. It would still be called a webcomic or a webtoon. But let's look at that a bit deeper. Do you need to be Japanese for it to be called manga? Is your ethnicity the de facto thing that matters on whether or not it can be called manga? Well, obviously not. There are Koreans that do manga. Look no further than Boichi, the artist for Dr. Stone. Or look at Im Dal-young, or as I call him, the literal antichrist that did the dog shit known as freezing and many other incomplete work. If you guys have the gall to give these wastes of paper and ink a pass to be called manga, but Corey can't call his work manga, then you got me messed up. But again, to be fair, Wikipedia does separate their manga work from their manhwa work. Hell, forget manga or manhwa, we have Wolfon, a Taiwanese illustrator, as the artist for the Bakemonogatari light novels. Can this be called a light novel, or are light novels the exception? And speaking of light novels, what about Yu Kamiya, the artist and writer for No Game No Life? He's of Japanese, Italian, and Portuguese descent. Is he just Japanese enough for it to count? I personally think the ethnicity claim is the weakest claim to make. This is sort of tangential, but look at K-pop. There are some groups that have non-Korean members, and they sometimes don't even speak Korean for some of their songs. I mean, look at this K-pop group Cat's Eye, and yes, they are a K-pop group despite only one member being Korean. I think they call it K-pop because it was formed in Korea by a Korean company, and I think that's what matters the most, but other than that, like, their ethnicity has nothing to do with it. However, K-pop is definitely not my specialty, so again, I don't really have the strongest opinion on it, but I'll let you guys in the comments decide that one. But needless to say, where it was made is a much stronger argument than who made it. If Corey were to go to Japan, would this then become a manga? I think in that case it would pass the manga test, but again, if it's online, does the location of where it got published matters, like in webtoons or things just uploaded digitally? Just to reiterate, I want this to be an open discussion and a safe space for thought, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. I personally think that the term manga and comic do mean something individually. When someone says comic, they think of a certain type of art style, panel composition, and storytelling, and maybe subject matter like superheroes and things like that. When someone says manga, we're thinking of the anime art style, large eyes, sharp nose, etc., while most comics look a lot like this. But with that being the case, this, nor this looks like what we think comics look like. However, in that same vein, we have things like Crayon Shinchan that look nothing like typical anime or manga. And yes, this is considered to be an anime. Why? Because the Google AI told me so. Okay, I'm just kidding. But I do think there's a lot of people in Japan that will look at Crayon Shinchan and call it anime. But not because they think of anime the way Americans or the Western world thinks of it. Probably because they call all cartoons anime. This discussion could be further expanded on the question of what anime is. And honestly, I think the sentiment of that all cartoons are anime, but not anime are all cartoons, is a sentiment that I think most of us can agree on. But again, I do think Japan doesn't really think the same way Americans are thinking about this. Earlier in this video, I said that the word anime was just short for animation. However, that is definitely not the case anymore. The thing known as anime refers to things like this, not this. I think the style and aesthetic plays a huge part in what we call anime. In fact, I think that's the most important part. It's why I always consider Avatar: The Last Airbender to just be an anime. The art style, the aesthetic, the storytelling is very much like an anime. Hell, I think it's better than most anime that I see to this day. But let's shift away anime for a bit and let's talk about the physical format of manga and comics as well. In terms of the physical book, manga tends to do the first volume all the way to the last volume. And I know there are some comics that do start from volume 1 and end on whatever volume number it ends, but I'm going to assume that people think of the many different runs and single issues comics have. At least it was that way when it comes to old classic Marvel and DC. Now there are comics that do the multiple volumes thing, but if someone were to ask me where to start if they want to know about, well, the X-Men, It'd be a lot more nuanced than starting from volume 1. Now, just to be clear, I do think both have their pros and cons. If you want to read Demon Slayer and don't know a single thing about it, you most definitely cannot start on volume 10. You will have absolutely no idea of what's going on. But comics are a bit more freeform in that way. If you like Batman and know more or less the basic Batman premise, you can more or less pick up any Batman story you think that sounds interesting and just go ahead and read it. I'm grossly making this sound easy, but there's really no single beginning Batman comic that I could point to you. But if you move away from Marvel and DC, you'll find things like Image, Boom, and Dark Horse does the thing with Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, etc. Also, with manga, there's usually one artist. Sure, they may have a team or assistants to help with backgrounds and general inking, but only one artist is getting their name on the volume cover. Well, two if the artist and author are separate people. But for comics, you can find the names of the penciler, the inker, the colorer, the letterer, and a whole other person that does the art for the cover. And don't forget, the artist can be changed in and out over the course of a single run when it comes to comics, which could be a bit annoying because in one chapter it could look a certain way, then you flip the page and the art style looks completely different, but that's beside the point. With all of these things being said, I don't believe there's only one way to make a comic or manga. I've seen some manga switch out their main artists, although it's usually due to health concerns like the Pokemon Adventures manga, or due to like literally dying, like for Berserk or Solo Leveling Ragnarok. And as for the rules to what can be called manga or what label is appropriate, personally I think it's a bit more nuanced than just being Japanese and being made in Japan, although I do think being made in Japan is a much stronger reason for it being a manga as opposed to just being Japanese. The point is though, for Corey X Kenshin and his manga Monsters We Make, and for Tony Valente for Radiant, and for White Manga's Apple Black, I can see the vision. I can see where the inspiration was taken from and the passion being put into and the reason why they want to call this a manga and why they made this in the manga format. But honestly, I'll admit Corey said it best.
Call it what you want, just read it, please.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I wanted to do this video for a while because the manga/comic discourse has been on the rise lately on Twitter, and again, the Dandadan thing has been rather explosive. I'm not going to go into that since I don't think I have a very strong and formed perspective on the whole thing, but let's just add this whole thing as to another reason why I never do fan art of any sort. Yes, it's easy to get more exposure as an artist this way, but I'm honestly trying to be a very inoffensive YouTuber and artist, if that makes any sense. The art community and the anime community are ruthless, but it is the name of the beast, unfortunately. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the video and want to see more videos of me talking about art stuff, like the video. Liking the video is cool. Comments are cool too. Good comments are cool, and even the bad ones are pretty nice too. And subscribe. I recently passed 18k due to the Horikoshi video, so thank you all to the newcomers to this channel. I do hope that you will stick around. If you want, you can follow my Instagram, my Twitter, my Twitch that I'll stream on very soon. And if you guys want, you can support my Patreon. I have like exclusive stuff there. I'm going to be posting more exclusive stuff, so please stick around. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.